Hello, welcome to the Quakes Motel. My name's Conan. In today's video, we are going to start arranging a track which I made the other day in Beats from the Big Chair, episode 6. Now, before we get into it, I just want to explain a few things. I'm going to kind of just do this live, so it might not work out. But what I'm going to try and do as I go is I'm going to try and explain the reasoning, my concepts, the reasons why I do things. So even if it doesn't work out exactly how I want it to, there's still the content in there that will give you some ideas on how I arrange a track. Also, this is not the only way that I arrange a track. There's loads of different ways that I arrange. What I'm going to show you today is one of the ways that I arrange. It's a method that I tend to use when I'm arranging house records, club records, because there is a kind of formula that you have to sort of follow. I don't have to. There's a formula which tends to work. That's a better way of putting it. So I have a kind of method and a formula that I've followed for, I don't know, over 30 years when I put together a house track, because you're making it for the club. It's for DJs to play out, right? So I tend to have that kind of thought, and because I'm a DJ myself, I tend to arrange tracks the way that I think them in my head if I was DJing and I had a load of effects to play with. So that's how I've arranged house music for a long time, also hip hop and other music that I work on. So I'll try and explain as I go, but it's just going to be kind of rough and ready. And also the way that my brain works, and anyone's brain works, is it doesn't work like a robot. You have priorities and then you get sidetracked and then you go and do something else. And so it might be a little bit all over the place, but I will do my best to try and explain as I go so you have an idea. And if there's anything that I do that I perhaps don't explain very well, please comment below, ask the question, say, why did you do this, Conan? Or can't you do it this way or whatever? There's no right or wrong here as well, obviously, as you've heard me say, if you watch my videos, probably a million times. It's just about getting in the flow, getting in the groove, and that's exactly what I'm going to do today. Let's jump in. So that has to be the record for the longest introduction to a Quakes Motel video ever, I think. So we're going to jump into the MPC. I'm just going to unravel all the wires underneath here. If only you could see. Perhaps in another video. So jumping into the MPC, this is the beat that I made the other day on Beats from the Big Chair, episode 6. Nice kind of lo-fi disco house track. And I made a little change after I finished the video, which I'll just explain now. So we have the drum track with all the drums on it. We have a disco loop, just a disco drum beat. And then we have the actual disco loop. And what I've done is I've taken all the low end out of that using Power EQ. I've literally just used the filters, rolled off all the low end up to about 420 hertz, as you can see. And the reason why I've done that is because I've copied that using this duplicate track with events just there. And I've made a bass version of it. So it's an old school technique. It's been around for years. I'm not reinventing the wheel, but basically you take your sample and you split it in two. You have a low end version and you have a mids and a highs version. You can even have, and I have done this in a video before, you can have a low, a mids and a high, 3 different versions of it. But for this, I just need 2 different versions. The reason why I do that is because obviously when you have a full sample that you've taken off a record, you've sampled off somebody, you don't have separate multi-tracks, so you don't have the ability to be able to EQ just the bass or just the strings or just the guitar, etc. But what we found as producers when we first started getting to this whole sample thing in the late 80s with the MPCs and stuff is if we separated it into 2, i.e. a low end and a mids and highs, we could just EQ the low end, whack loads of bass on there, and it's not going to affect the rest of the sample. And then we would have the mids and the highs separate. Now, I've actually made a video about that, so I will link that below, or I'll put it up here, or however they do it. And that just explains the reasoning behind that and just about the whole old school technique. So that's what I did since that video. I haven't done anything else at all. I didn't want to start arranging it or anything like that. I just wanted to get everything that... The way that I like to do things is I like to prepare. I like to have everything in place. So I've got my 2-bar, 4-bar or whatever bar loop, in this case a 2-bar loop, and I've got all the elements that I then want to build with. And then as the track goes on, I might add some risers, whooshes, a crash cymbal, etc. But I can do all that later on. Basically, I want to start off with all the elements in one place. So that's what I've got here. I've got a 2-bar loop. And that's it. So we'll make sure we've saved that. Now what I want to do now is I've got this sequence here, the 2-bar loop, and I want to actually start building my track now, the arrangement. And I'm going to explain the concept behind this. You can skip this if you want, just go straight to the arrangement part. But I think this is quite important because I'm explaining the concept behind this particular way of arranging. So I've got the 2-bar loop. And I'm just going to leave that alone. And I'll show you in a second. I'm basically going to copy that 2-bar loop onto a new sequence. Now, the way that I build tracks in the MPC, and I always have done, I've never really been a fan of the song mode, etc., is I just take one long sequence and I build it like that. I always think of it as if I'm a sculptor. And a sculptor will have a block of marble or stone or clay. And that's what they'll start off with. And it's got no shape or form. They will then chip away or mold with their hands, etc., to form that sculpture. Now I think of making a track like that. So the way that I do it, and it's really, really simple, is I will literally take those 2 bars and I will copy them however many times I need to copy them. And that will just give me a big block of music. So in this case, we'll go for something like 180 bars. I'll go for all this in a second. And that gives me a block, which I can then chip away at. I can then erase a bit here, erase a bit there. But one of the benefits of doing it like that is it instantly breaks you out of that 2-bar, 1-bar, 4-bar trap that you're stuck in. How many times have I heard people say, I've got a hard drive full of 2-bar tracks, 4-bar tracks, and I've never actually finished anything. If you do what I'm about to show you, you have literally got a track, a 4, 5, 6 minute track done. It's there, it's right in front of you. And all you need to do then is be that sculptor and just chip away. Take your mallet and your pointy thing, whatever it's called, it'll come to me, and chip away and build your song or your sculpture, if you like. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this sequence onto a new sequence. So I've left alone a sequence with just the 2 bars. That's my palette, if you like. That's where I get my little bits from that I need. And then I'll start building the track in this other sequence. Okay, so the easiest way to do that in the MPC on the main page is literally copy sequence. There we go. And we'll put it on number 2. And we will call it R1. It's just good to get into the habit of doing these things and naming things so you know exactly what's going on. It's going to be copied on sequence 2. That's what it's going to be called. Do it. So now on sequence 2, I have my same 2 bars. Let's just save that. But on sequence 1, I still have that 2 bar as well, but that's just my palette. I'm not going to touch that. I'm just going to leave that there in case something goes mentally wrong and everything just falls apart. The reason why I do that is it's very, very obvious, very simple. I'm now going to work on sequence 2 as my sculpture. But if I just don't like it and I just want to scrap it and I want to start all over again, which is something I quite often do, I can just delete that sequence, go back to sequence 1, copy it again, start again. I'm not touching my palette. I'm not going to do anything with that. So it's there whenever I need it. Because what I have done in the past is I've got carried away. I've started building on this first sequence that I've got the 2 bars. I've copied everything. I've made like 200 bars or whatever. I've started chipping away. And because I've started erasing parts and moving parts around, then when I decided that I didn't like it anymore, I had to literally go through each individual track and take 2 bars and then rebuild a starting palette. So I got into the habit very, very quickly when I used to arrange on the MPC into doing this, having a separate sequence. So that's my palette, and this is what I'm going to start working on. So as I said, I've got my 2 bars now, and I want to just basically have a big chunk, get my big block of wood or my big bit of marble or stone or whatever, so that I can then start chipping away and arranging the track. So an easy way to do that in the MPC, copy bars. Okay, we've got bar 1 to bar 2, first bar, last bar. I want to go after bar number 2, and I want to make it 180 bars, which I know from experience is going to be around about 5.5 minutes for a track this speed. So that would be 90 times 2, but I've already got 2, so I want 89. You don't have to be exact. I could have just put 90 and had, more than 180 bars. Merge. There we go. So now you can see straight away, I have got a track that is 180 bars long. Let's save that. And that's it. Finished. Bye. Obviously, I'm only messing about. Now I've got the block. If I go into the new arranger window, you can see we have this massive long track with everything on it. 180 bars long. There we go. Woo woo. Okay, and also if we go into grid as well, you can see same. Okay, so we've got 180 bars. Now, we've got our bass, we've got our main loop, we've got the disco drum beat on its own, which is just a little drum beat that I added to make it sound a little bit more organic. Then we've got a drum track. Now, because I want to build things bit by bit, it just makes it easier rather than in the grid view on that particular track, taking little bits out here and there. Just a quick way to do things now is to explode that track into separate tracks, basically. So you've got kicks on one, or a kick on one, hi-hats, etc., etc., etc. So a quick way to do that in the MPC on the track window here is hit that and explode track. Boom. That simple. Even had enough time to go outside, make a cup of coffee, come back, and it was done. Awesome. So now, if I go into the arrangement window, you can now see I've got all my drums. They've all stayed the same color, which is great, does that automatically. And now I have, in the arranger window, I've got my drums separated. I've got the disco drum beat on its own. We'll just call that the disco beat going forward. And the disco loop and the bass on its own. So now I can start arranging. Remember, I've got my big lump of marble. We'll stick with marble, and I'm going to start chopping away. Now, this is where things can get a little bit complicated, and this is why I haven't so far actually made a video about arranging, because it's a bit of a boring process, and a lot of it, for me, goes on inside my head. I already know in my head, I have a sketch in my head how I want this track to sound. I know that I have to ask myself, I make an assessment before I start arranging. Is it a track that's going to be played in clubs? And I go that way. If it's not a track that's being played in clubs, I go that way. It's almost like a, what do they call it? Like a tree type sort of thing. You know, you go, is it yes, you go here. Is it no, you go here. So we won't go down the no lanes, because that would just take ages it was infinite possibilities. So we'll just go through the yeses. I start off with, it's a house track. Okay, I know that. Is it a track that's going to be played in a club? Well, I hope so. Is it a track that's going to be released and played in the club? Yes, we hope so. Okay, so we've established that. So immediately you have to start thinking in terms of certain boundaries that you have to stick to. Boundaries that I will then ask myself is, it probably has to stay the same speed all the way through. You can change the speed if you want creatively. French Kiss by Lil Lewis is a great example of that, and it does happen in other house records. But generally, we keep house records the same speed all the way through. I will just say this though, here's a little thing. Todd Terry, one of my favourite house music producers, he does this, and I think Dave Morales has done this on a couple of tracks as well. And I don't know whether it's on purpose or whether it's because they have sequenced their drum beats on maybe an SP1200 or something, and then they've bounced it to tape, and there's been a fluctuation in speed in between them taking the first part of the track and the second part of the track. But Todd Terry, there's a particular track which I DJ out, and the first 16 bars are slightly faster than the rest of the track, and then the last 16 bars are slightly faster than the rest of the track. So I don't know whether he recorded the intro and the outro onto tape, or whether he purposely changed the speed to keep you on your game, or this is another reasoning behind it, you kind of have to play the track from the start all the way to the end, because otherwise you could be thrown off by the speed changes. So that could be his tactic. But he's done that, he's done that on more than one track. So I think it's on purpose. The guy's a legend. And so, but that aside, generally you keep it at the same speed all the way through. So we know that we're going to have to stick with that. So these are the boundaries that you have to have. Everything has to be kind of locked in time. You can't have things drifting off. We know that. So but by doing these little assessments, I then start getting into my mind, I'm going to need a drum intro generally. And then I'm going to kind of drop into the main part of the track and build it up. Then everything's going to come in. It's going to be banging along for a little bit. Then it's going to go into a big breakdown where it goes back into just maybe the disco loop, etc. Then it's going to build up again and everything's going to come back in again, and then it's going to fade. That's it. That's how I think of it. Peaks and troughs. With club records, because sometimes, obviously I'm not condoning this in any way whatsoever, there are drugs involved. So people like to be taken on peaks and troughs. They like to go up and down. We won't talk about that. I don't condone it. But it does happen. And also people who don't take drugs also like to just like have peaks and troughs in songs. It's not just drugs. I might have to cut this out, this part. Anyway, that aside, peaks and troughs, that's what I'm doing. I'm thinking of it in the same way as a DJ, because I'm a DJ myself and I have been for as long as I can remember, too many years. I arrange tracks in that way when I'm making club music. So I've already got it in my head how I'm going to be doing things. And also I want to, just so that I don't completely throw people off, I want things in sections of 4s, 8s, 16s, 32s. Generally 8s, 16s and 32s are decent for kind of house music. You want something changing. For me, I like to have things changing every 8 to 16 bars to keep the energy there, keep it driving. Unless, you're making, that's not with every single type of house music. Again, no right or wrong here. But in this particular track, I'm thinking that I want to build peaks and troughs. I want changes every 8 to 16 bars. And that already starts building inside my head, so I know things are going to be going. And I kind of map it out inside my head before I even start arranging things. But I've already got my 180. I guess, again, it's going back to being the sculptor, isn't it? You have your block of marble and you know what you're going to be doing. You don't just have a block of marble in front of you and think, I don't know what I'm going to make. I'm just going to start chipping away at it. You already know that you're going to be making a bust of somebody, or you're going to be making, a statue of somebody, or a tree, or a dog, or whatever. You've got it in your mind what you're going to do before you start chipping away, generally, as a rule. So I like to have an idea of what I'm going to be doing roughly. And sometimes I'll make notes. I'm not going to do that here because it'd be boring, but I'll make notes in a little notepad with a pen. Do you remember those pens, things? And paper. And I'd write it down, because this is a thing where you put pen to paper, you write things down and just make notes. So I've got notes to go back to. Obviously indoors, you can write it in. It's a lot easier. You don't have to have pens and paper anymore. So before I even start, preparation, I have an idea of where I want to go with the track. And I can go off on tangents if I want to. So we've got our nice and new arrangement window. And a way that you can work in the MPC, or a way that I've been working with the arrangement window, is to work in sections with this top loop part here. So you can see here, start and end. This is basically connected to that little window. So if I take that to say 8 bars and I go back into the arrangement window, you can see that's now 8 bars. And I can move that anywhere that I like. And I can use that as like a focus on what part of the track that I want to work on. 8 bars, you can have it as 16 bars. I mean, actually, let's take it to 16 bars. I've moved that. If you go back out now, you will see that it's 16 bars on there. First end, there we go. And obviously that will correlate as well. Is correlate the right word? If I move that, it now starts on number 9. Go back to the window, you can see start 9, end 24. So I use that as a little focus thing to work on, and it just makes things a lot easier. And the reason why is because if I have that as my main focus, bar 1 to 16 to start with, say for instance, and I go into edit, whenever I want to do something like say a raise, it's already selected bar 1 to bar 17, which means bar 1 to 16 inclusive. And here you can pick whatever you want to erase, for instance, all automation, note, and except note. We won't go into that too much. Sorry, if you hear weird noises, I've got 4 dogs and a cat down there. Maybe I'll add some B-roll just so you can see them. And one of my dogs snores really, really loudly. You might be able to hear it. It's only a little chihuahua, about that big, but she's the loudest dog on the planet. Anyway, going back to that. So I use that as a focus thing because it basically is connected to that. What you have selected in there will be selected in the edit window. It just makes things a lot easier. Although I will point out, obviously, you can change that if you want. But if you use that as a focus point, you don't really have to. So I'm thinking now that for the first 8 bars, so we'll take that down to 8. For the first 8 bars, I don't really want everything coming in. So I want maybe the disco beat and a clap, and then I'll start bringing stuff in as I go. So what I need to do is right, the first, that's muted now, by the way, because I exploded it. So we can leave that alone. I will solo through. Okay. So basically I want 2 and 6 out of that. And for the first 8 bars. So if I go into here, 2 I want, so 3 can be gone. So from 3 up to, was it 7 that I needed? So if I go into here and I erase that, that goes there, you can see that. So that's gone. And I want to erase that. That's gone. You can do it quicker. You can erase in bigger chunks if you want. But I like to go through it like that because obviously the disco loop as well. The disco loop can be erased all the way up to bar 32, actually, thinking about it, because that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to have no disco loop at all until bar 33 kicks in. So that can go and that can go as well. You see, this is why I don't think these videos are that exciting, because it's literally doing this. And the big kick, I don't want that as well. That can go. Erase. And there we go. So, oh, I didn't erase the bass. Oh, sorry, it's the disco loop. Actually, I didn't want to get rid of that. All right, so I'll have to put that back in a second. In fact, if I undo, there we go, disco loop's back in again. It's actually these 2 that I want to delete. My bad. This is how easy things can get confusing. Do it, and then the bass. There we go. It's because I hadn't scrolled down. Easily rectifiable with the undo button. So, and I want that gone for the first 8 bars. I think I'm going to lose that hat as well. And I'm going to lose that hat from there as well. So if I just take that down to 8 bars again. It's a bit fiddly sometimes. By the way, when you have your focus thing there as well, when you hit play start, it starts from your focus point. So that's also very handy as well. So I want to get rid of that for those 8 bars too. So 8 to 16. Already chosen. You can see 9 to 17. There you go. And we will have that. is the snare drum. The snare drum's that one, so that can go as well. And then I want this just for a bar, and I'll show you why. Because I want the kicks to drop out. So the kicks are that one. So now if I edit and delete that, bar 16 to 17, do it. And number 6, do it. Let's just take that back a little bit so we can hear it come in. Okay, so now we're into the next part of the song. The first 16 bars in my mind are taken care of. Now in my head I can hear that maybe I'll add a crash cymbal and potentially some kind of whooshes, some risers, that kind of thing. Not a full-on riser yet because we're only in the first 16 bars, but maybe some like disco whooshes. I know what I'm talking about. Let's just come out and just make sure that that's saved. Let's go back into the arrangement window. How are we doing for time? We're on, okay. Right, so we're now on bar 16. And everything is starting to come in now. This is our drop point here, because you can see where the disco loop comes in there as well. Let's just... Oh yeah, and by the way, if you don't want to play what's in the focus window, just hit this play rather than the play start. You see, I can pick where the playhead goes. Sorry, let's just put that back there. Pick where the playhead goes. At least I thought I could. I did just a second ago. Anyway, you can do that and just hit that and it will start playing where you've put the playhead. Okay. Everything just getting a little bit too fiddly. I'm not a big fan of this touchscreen, as you can probably tell. I'm trying to keep my cool. It's because I'm doing this video and I'm trying to do things quickly. If I wasn't doing it quickly, everything would probably be absolutely fine and falling into place. Anyway, right, so we're now focused on here. We're coming in at bar 17. You see how important it is to maybe take notes and have the layout done in your head before you even start. Because I've worked on MPCs for so long, my missus thinks this is mental. I can think in 8, 16s, 32s, 64s, 128, etc. I automatically can think in bars of 8 and multiples of 8 and 16s and 32s. And it's just an odd way to think sometimes that, you know, I'll think on bar 129, this will come in. Comes in on bar 129 because you've had 128 go before it. So it's inclusive when you think of when it's going to come in. So I know for first 32 bars, I know that bar 33 is the point where something's going to come in, something's going to happen. And I know that on bar 65, that's when something's going to happen. Bar 97, and it goes on. And that's just how I can think. I can think in that way because I've done this for such a long time. And that's the kind of state that you have to get your brain into. It's very, very mathematical, as music is maths. So it does help if you take notes as you go, because otherwise you can get confused very, very quickly. One of the things that I hear more than anything, and this is not a criticism, okay? I work with people one-to-one, I work with students, and the thing that I hear the most often when it comes to arrangement is they've not followed those rules. Now, you have to be careful here. You've heard me say this 100 times. There's no wrong or right, and there are no dead set rules, but there are guidelines that you can stick to, and you do kind of have to stick to them, because if I was to make a house track that's played in a club and the drop comes in halfway through bar 27, that's just going to freak people out. And that could be a good thing, but generally you don't tend to do that, you know. And what I quite often I will hear with people, they just jump into the arrangement, they start erasing this bit here, and they're not focused on the structure before they start. So they might have a drop on bar 27 and they'll have it for like 10 bars, and then it will go on for like 17 bars instead of 16, and it can look, it's not wrong, but you have to kind of have a structure. You understand what I'm saying here? You know, I'm trying my hardest not to say you have to do this, but you do kind of have to have a structure, because otherwise it's just a mess. It's just chaos. And music is about taking, I like to think of music is about taking the chaos of sound frequencies and arranging them into something beautiful and something with structure. Because otherwise, you know, you have tempo for a reason, you have timings for a reason, you have swing for a reason, and you have scales for a reason. Because otherwise, if you don't have those rules, then it's just total chaos. You know, you can't play certain notes if you're playing in the key of A minor. You can't, you know, and if you do, which people like Thelonious Monk used to do, you have to do it in such a way that it still gets back to the original key in its own, in a way. I'm going onto a tangent here, but there has to, without saying that you have to stick to strict rules, there does have to be some structure. So the reason why I work like this, like for instance, is in blocks of 8 or blocks of 16. It's an easier way to see how the structure is working. You can set up markers and stuff like that as well, but I'm not going to go into that right now, but maybe that's another video. But you can set up markers so that you can see where things work. And you could actually do that before you even started. You could set up markers on 32, 64, 128, etc. and roughly where you want to do things, where the first verse will be, where the chorus is, where the middle eight's going to be, where the last chorus is, where the fade out starts. So all those kind of things, you can use markers to do that. And you can jump to them quickly in the song. And maybe I should touch on that, because that's actually really quite useful to be able to jump to certain parts of the song. But I'm rambling again here. So we're up to that's bar 17, isn't it? Right, now, because I'm coming up to here, I've brought it up like that. Because I'm going into a breakdown, I want to kind of go into it nicely. I want a nice transition into it. I don't just want it to stop dead. That's how I'm thinking on this particular track. But you can have a stop dead if you want to. But I don't want to have a stop dead on this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take out the hats from there. So if I erase those, see 25, 33 selected for me. And the snares can go. And then we'll leave the percussion in, the hats can go. And then we could really do something now, couldn't we? We could just break it right down, so we could lose that as well. Yeah, because what I'm thinking in my head is we're coming into the last 8 bars before the big drop. Then I've got 4 bars here, and here I would have like maybe a riser or a shh. And then we're going to drop into everything. Now, the first breakdown of the track, let's just come out, make sure that's saved. The first breakdown of the track, I don't actually have to come out to save that. I can just do shift and save. The first breakdown of the track is going to be 16 bars. So we've set up our focus, and what we want to do is, I literally want nothing else but the disco loop. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to filter it. I'm probably going to filter it in. Yeah. So it will start with just the bass. So it will drop into the bass. We'll have our transition. We'll have our whoosh. We'll have our echoed crash cymbal. Again, these are things I'm just thinking in my head. They're not actually happening on here yet because I haven't got the crashes and the whooshes yet. They're what I call secondaries. So they're in my head. I know they're there, and I'd probably make a note. I'd probably say bar 33. Crash cymbal with decay, whooshes, riser, the last 4 bars before bar 33. So bar 29 to 33 would be a riser or whooshes. Write it down so that you remember. If you're in a flow of things, you need to remember these things. It's very easy to forget. So what I want to do is I want to delete pretty much everything. Sorry, if you've just seen a change in color, it's because my main monitor in front of me has just gone into screen save. All right, let's just put that back on again, because otherwise it's really blue in my face. Right, where were we? Okay, so focus. I want to get rid of those 16 bars on that track, and do we want to get rid of all those things there? Yeah, we could do, couldn't we? All right, so there we go. Let's just move that there. Yeah, I want to get rid of that. So we'll erase. Yeah, erase that. I'll erase that. Again, you can erase more than just one track, but I'm doing it like this because actually, no, let's undo that again. Let's start again. That's the kick drum. That's the hat. So the hat can go for the whole 16 bars. The percussion can go for the whole 16 bars. The snare can go for the whole 16 bars. This is why I do it like this, because I want to think of it in my head. The kicks can go for the whole 16 bars. The secondary kicks, they won't go for the whole 16 bars. The hi-hats can go for the whole 16 bars. The claps, I only want them to go for the first 8. So, and the same with those secondary, the acoustic kick, not the big kick. So, and I want to get rid of that as well. That can go for the first 8 as well and come in for the second 8. And then I want the low end to drop out for that last part there. For 2 bars, yeah. So that will... And I can probably take out that secondary kick there as well. (47 to 49), yeah. Reverse cymbal, riser. The riser will probably start there. Come right up for that whole 8 bars. From bar 41, maybe from bar 45. So I'd make a note of that. Maybe the riser would start at 41, and then I'd have a whoosh over the top of the riser for the last 4 bars, and then a reverse cymbal for the last bar. Whoosh, 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 big bang. There you go. And then everything drops in. What I like to do, I like to think of things, and this comes from my mentor, who kind of taught me this, is that in music, you give people presents, you give them little treats, and you don't want to give them too much all at the same time, and you want to just tease them a little bit and give them that, and then take bits away. And it's not always about adding stuff. Like, for instance, you can see, for instance, here, for the first, I built up the track. So the DJ's mixing it in. He's got first 8 bars, then the next 8 bars, something comes in, then the next 8 bars, all the beats come in, and then I'm taking stuff away again. So I'm taking things away, so it's taking it back down. I'm taking presence away from you. But then I give you the main loop, the main talent of the track, if you like. That comes in at bar 32, builds up. But then before it comes back in, before everything kicks back in, I then take things away again. I've built up the claps and the secondary kicks there, but before it all comes in, I've taken the low end out, and I've taken, in fact, actually, does the disco loop come? Yeah, the disco drums are in there as well. They can come out as well. 47 to 49, goodbye. So just take that back a little bit and just listen to that again. See, you can make, because look, really, at the end of the day, all I've got going on there is a house beat and a disco loop. But by taking things away, the impact of it coming back in when everything's together is bigger, because I took things away to start with. And that is often what it's about with club music, especially. The whole peaks and troughs thing is taking away the little treats, the little presents, and then giving them back to the audience. So that's how I think of it when I'm arranging things and building things up. Is taking the presents away, giving them all back. Now, yes, you can press shift and save from there. I'd never actually done that before. I always go out to the main window. So now we are in bar 49. And I would say for this first part of the track, what I'm going to do after the first breakdown, and this will take us to, let me think, bar 49, 65. I want it to do it for 32 bars, so it's going to take us up to 73. Is that right? 50. No, sorry, it's going to go on longer than that. 48 will take us to bar 81, sorry. So I'm going to do 32 bars of the disco loop filtering in and out, and I'll automate the filter to do that. We're going to have time to show some of that today. Yeah, I could show some of that today. We're on kind of like 40 minutes now, give or take, little edits that I might have to do if I've been rambling for too long. So everything's come back in. Now, bear in mind, it won't just be doing this. It's going to be filtering up and down. But the filtering won't start straight away, because you've got to give the presence back. You can't take it away too quickly. So what I'll probably start doing is, for the first 16, nothing really is going to happen at all. And then for just maybe 2 bars there, I'll take the main kicks out, because that does a nice little drop. There's the hard kick there. There we go. Delete that. 63 to 65. You'll hear that this just does a nice little, just kind of like just a little drop out. I probably could take out maybe those open hats there. Maybe those could go. And maybe the low end could go. Because now I'm going to start filtering things around. So there you see, you've taken away some of the presents. Let's get rid of that hat there as well. Maybe the disco loop can go there as well. Goodbye to that hat. And goodbye to the disco loop. I guess disco drums, sorry. Yeah, see, and now I'm going to start. And also in there, I'm thinking I would have a reverse hat, maybe a. No, I don't want to do any more rises and whooshes. See, there again, you see, whooshes and risers, etc. for me are little treats that you give the audience in your track. So don't overdo them. Sometimes I might use a riser in a track once. In this track, because I'm going to have 2 breakdowns, it'll be used twice, but don't overdo it. Reverse cymbals are your friend. They are, for me, and if you listen to multiple house music producers out there, they are such a great tool for covering over transitions. You know, so like I said, I've got 16 bars here from 49 to 65. Sorry, yeah, that's right. Yeah, 48 to 64. Starting at 65 is when I'm going to start filtering stuff. So for the first 16 bars, there's nothing going on there. But what I've done, as you can see, is before I've started doing the filter, I've created another little change. So it's a little drop. So you had 16 bars, and people can feel it on the dance floor. They know the change is coming because in their heads, even though they don't realise they're doing it, most of them are counting in 4s, 8s, 16s anyway. So they know when the change is going to happen, and you have to kind of give them that. And that's what was going on about how things have to stay quite structured, that you can't make the change on bar 15 and then make another change 9.5 bars later. People tend to have 1, 2, 3, 4 going on inside their heads when they're on the dance floor at a house music club. If they're on the dance floor at a Northern Soul club or a jazz club, it could be 6 beats to the bar or 5 or whatever. But we're making house music here. And I'll go off on some mad tangent, so we won't go into that. I have made a house beat once, a house track. I released it. It's on my label, 7 beats to the bar, and it didn't do very well. So there you go. It was an experiment. I was going through my experimental stage, and it was rubbish. I mean, the track wasn't rubbish. The track was decent, and actually quite a few high-profile DJs included it on mixes that they played on radio, but it didn't get much club play because people, when they're on the dance floor, they have that structure going on inside their head. And you can't be too experimental because you're just going to lose them. And the thing is if you lose the dance floor, the DJ's not going to play it. The DJ is going to think, well, I'm not going to play this track because last time I played this, everyone walked off and the owner came over and said, dude, what are you doing? So you have to think about those. You do actually have to think about those things. If your intention is to release the track on a label or try and get it signed to a big house music label, the intention is for it to be played on a dance floor. So the intention needs to be that it's a danceable track, right? Otherwise, you know, there could be a million reasons why you release a track, but if that's your intention, you do have to stick to these guidelines most of the time. So where were we? So we've dropped now into the second part here, which is going to take us up to bar 80. So we've got So for this 16 bars, I'm going to be playing around with the filters. Now I'm looking at the time and I think that's enough for this one. And I hope you're all going, no, Conan, please, I want you to show us how to do this, because that's great, because that means I've got you hooked and I'm showing you some things that are inspiring you, which was the whole point behind this. So we'll have a part 3. We'll carry on. And do you know what? The reason why I'm doing it in bite-sized chunks like this, if I was maybe doing a live stream and I went for 3 hours, then maybe you would watch it. But I think after about an hour, you'd probably start, if not even before, you'd start looking at your phone or you go make a cup of coffee or whatever. So if I keep it, I'm thinking like to about 45 minutes to an hour, then they're bite-sized chunks. So that's the point that we're up to right now. And in the next part, number 3 of Beats from the Big Chair, episode 6, part 3, we will go into some automation on the filtering. I'm not going to touch this. I'm going to leave it till the next episode. We'll save it. And where it is now is where it will be in the next episode. So I'll just explain what I'm going to cover though in the next part of the next part of this. So what I'll do is I will do some automation on the filters. We'll find some risers and some whooshes and some reverse cymbals, and we'll start adding those in certain places. We're going to get to the second breakdown of the track. Where are we? We're about bar 80 now. So I would, filtering there, I would have probably 16 bars. It's one of my dogs barking, sorry. We'll have 16 bars of going into the next breakdown. So the next breakdown will be at the beginning of bar 97. And I will have 16 bars of that. So that will take me to bar 113. I will then have 32 bars of that, which will take me to bar 145. Is that right? 32 bars, 113, 145. And then I'd probably look at going out. We're nearly at 180 with that. We could have another 32 bars of the loop going out, the disco loop going out, the beats gradually breaking down, and it would be the DJ mix out. So yeah, that's about right. So that's what I'll do in the next episode, and hopefully we can get it to a point where it's nearly finished. So there you have it. I hope there's some inspiring things in there. Like I said, my brain is like going off in 20 different directions at once. So having so doing that and trying to explain why I'm doing it and where my brain is going is not altogether easy. But I hope that I think it stayed pretty, didn't it, together? I didn't go too mental. I didn't go off on too many tangents. I didn't ramble too much. So I look forward to part 3 of this. And thanks for sticking with me. This is the Crates Motel. My name's Conan. Till next time.